Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Warm welcome to my new subscribers and a warm welcome and a happy weekend to those of you that have been with me for a while. Thank you for joining me. So I thought we'd have a little play today. No idea where it's going. All I've done is pulled out a few products. So what I've got is I've got a piece of Pink Frog smooth card, 4 inches by 6 inches. I've then created a black mat 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 and a card blank 5 by 7, all from Pink Frog smooth card. And we're just going to have a little play. So first of all, I knew I'd have to get something else. I just want a scrap of card. Goodness knows what scrap of card. Any scrap of card will do. Doesn't matter which scrap of card. And then an old book page, if you've got an old book page. So any scrap piece of card. And I've got this sort of British butterflies book. So I can use this. Make sure obviously you're not putting anything on there that, you know, shouldn't be read. But with it being butterflies, I'm presuming I'm pretty safe. And I would normally use distress collage medium, matte medium, whatever. So use something that gives you all over coverage for adhesion. But I'm just going to do it quickly because I've already done that. Let's move that out of the way. So I'm just going to adhere this to my page. And just for quickness, I'll use my tonic glue. But what I would use is use some matte medium just to add it to your card. So you're just adding this to scrap card. You're not adding this to the 4 by 6. You're just adding this book page to a piece of scrap card. So I'm just using any piece of scrap card and just adhering that down there. Now if you use matte medium or distress collage medium, you'll have that edge to edge adhesion. And then I'm going to use my hair snippet stencil, snippet SS2. Like so. And I think what we'll do is we'll just give that stencil a little bit of a wipe because it's worked hard and it's got lots of colours on there. Doesn't matter about the black, but it does matter if you've got oxide on there or anything that moves with moisture, so that does matter. Let's just make sure that that's dry by pressing it on your tracky bottoms. Lovely. So what I'm going to do then is just place my stencil onto the book text. So let's just have it a little bit further up just so it's on more of that text. There we go. And what I'm going to use is Distress Texture Paste Translucent. And I've actually got some of this in my shop. I actually bought some in. I'm only bringing products in that I genuinely use and use them over and over again. There's lots of techniques you can do with this texture paste. And I've done quite a few in workshops as well. So this is Texture Paste Translucent. And translucent means you can see through it. This texture paste will give you dimension, texture, and you can see through it. And I can't get it open. And I'll tell you why I can't get it open. If you leave any of the adhesive just around the edge here, it just makes it difficult for you to unscrew the lid and remove any around the edges. So what I'm going to do is take some of that translucent texture paste, and it's lovely and soft and creamy, really nice. So let's just, don't mess with it too much, just place your texture paste on and don't faff with it too much, and leave a bit of your sort of palette knife markings. So let's then grab a pair of scissors. Do you know, it takes me longer to lift the stencil than do anything else. There we go. Let's leave that texture paste on there. And just so that you can see, you will see that you've got that hair there, and then you will need to let that dry overnight so that it's solid dry. But that's okay, you can just do that and then come back. So leave that to dry overnight, and when you let it dry overnight, you then cut it out, and you've got this really firm embellishment. It's got texture on there, which we will highlight, but it's got the book pages through, and it's nice and thick. So lovely and thick. And because I've left the palette knife markings on there, it's got texture as well, which we will highlight later. What you can also do then is frantically try and find another piece of card, which in my room seems to be harder than anything. So let's find another card. What's this? Oh, this is another card blank. This is a card I've got on the side. So I've got this texture paste on here. So I can take the texture paste and then I can just rub it onto my project. Just like so. Just rub that sort of remaining texture paste on there. And just leave it on there to dry, because it will dry textural again, just like any other. I've then got another piece of card, so let's add this here, and I can then take more of that dimensional texture paste and just wipe that over the project like so. I can then do exactly the same again. Just, I'm not going to be able to put it on there because it's on. Let me grab another piece so you can see how far this little bit of texture paste will go. So I can then, so I didn't add much to my stencil at all, but I'm just rubbing the excess. I can also take any that's on the palette knife, any excess, and just add that. And I don't even clean the stencil. I hope you can see that. There you go. And I'll be able to decorate something with that. I'll be able to either apply distress inks over. I'll be able to use sprays over that, and it'll show, and it'll have a little bit of dimension. Remember to clean your palette knife, and then don't clean your palette knife until you should have done this. Just go around the edge and just make sure that is not around the edge of your pot, because you want to be able to undo the lid quite nicely. Just fasten that lid nice and tight. There we go. And that's fine. So when we highlight this, I will show you what texture we get on that little bunny. So just clean the stencil, which is perfect. And when we've finished our project, what we'll do is we'll add something over the top of this, and you'll be able to see sort of the lumps and bumps of that. But we've now got our own embellishment. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to add some colour to this, and I want to use some different colours. So I'm going to use Crackling Campfire and Broken China, and I've used these colours in a workshop, and they're beautiful colours together. I really like them. So what I'm going to do is take the Crackling Campfire, and I'm just going to add the Crackling Campfire just to my A7 acrylic block. Now it's about adding layers of colour, and I'm going to dry in between layers just so that I actually layer the colour. rather than them sort of merge together. So I'm spritzing the A7 acrylic block. Drip any off that you don't want. And then we'll just add this to our project. So it doesn't matter what acrylic block you use. I'm just using the A7 one. You can use whichever you want. And then you sing to yourself, you know, tra-la-la-la. Obviously, you sing a lot better than I do. But you have a little sing to yourself, because I'm just letting that just settle on there a little bit. Mainly because if I pick it up straight away, it'll move just all into the centre, which is fine. It still adds to the technique, but I just want to give it a few seconds, you know, so just chat or talk to yourself or sing to yourself, whichever you want, just to give it time to grab hold of that card. So then I'm just going to lift, and can you see it comes into the centre here when you lift it. The longer you leave it, the longer it will stay in position. Now, a lot of the time, I often say to you, let that dry naturally. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to dry the colour because we're going to layer our colours on the top. So just give that a little bit of a dry. Dry it from the back as well, just so that you can straighten your card out. Now, you want a good quality card, and yes, if you heat the card, it is going to bend and curl. Don't stress about that. You know, creating is not about stressing. So I've now got a little bit of colour on here that I'm literally just going to place back over the top and just add that to the card as well, just so that we don't waste any of that colour, so that we use most of it. So I'm going to give that a little dry again, just so that the majority of it is dry. You won't dry it completely because that moisture will still be in there. So just sort of mopping up any sort of blobs of moisture that are sitting there. I'm then going to use my Broken China Distress Oxide ink. You can use your inks if you want, your distress inks, but they will act differently because they are translucent. These are a pigment dye fusion, so they have an opaque quality. So I'm going to just add my Broken China, which is very pale. Take off the excess there, just so that it doesn't swim all over the place. And then you can place your acrylic block just over the top. And you can see the Broken China is nowhere near as strong as the orange colour. So what you want to do is you want to just mop up this colour here and then just dry a little bit more. You're going to layer the colour. So you want to keep that blue colour. So any areas where it goes a little bit browny colour, just mop them up. Okay, and make sure that you've got a reasonably clean acrylic block. You're just going to layer. Now, obviously, when I add moisture to this, you obviously are going to react this oxide layer underneath. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that moisture that's running off, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of that Broken China again. So you're not working with too many messy layers. You're doing it in quite a controlled manner. So just give that time just to sit on there. Now, because I've added moisture to this, it obviously will react with the crackling campfire that's underneath. That is the whole point of the Distress range. I'm just going to lift that up, and then where it looks a bit greeny, I'm just going to dab that up, and then I'm going to just add another few moments drying time each time. You do need a good quality card, and I will sort of bend the card when I have finished. So again, I'm going to clean that acrylic block, and then I'm going to go with the broken china again. You can see my broken china is well used. So tip off the excess. I mean, you can pick that up on another card if you wish. Turn your acrylic block around as well, because you will hit different areas. Now, my YouTube channel, I do varying content. Sometimes I do snippets that are 15 minutes long. Sometimes I'll do cards that are half an hour long. And sometimes I'll do a longer project. This is going to be a longer project. Just enjoying the process and enjoying my time creating. And you can see I've got a puddle here. If I just give that a couple of moments, just to just sort of sit on there and do its thing. It's all about patience sometimes, creating some of your backgrounds. So then you can keep that on if you want, but if you don't want too much of the green and you want more of the bluey tinge, I'm just going to give that a dry again. And I'm only drying so that I'm actually layering the colour on top. I'm going to take the broken china again. I'm going to take off the excess. Can you see I've got all that excess on there? And you can add that to another piece of card if you wish. It's entirely up to you. As my card is curling, you just need to hold that down a little bit, because it's curling a little bit, the card is, which is fine. So you're just going to give that a little bit of time. I love it where I get the little dots as well of that colour. I love getting the dots. So now I'm going to give that a little bit of a dry. I'm not even going to blot the colour. I'm going to leave that on there, just so that you can see. Let's just dry it from the back as well. We've added quite a bit of moisture on there. And I'm always tempted to touch the card. Don't be tempted to touch the card, because it will be very hot. Let's just move this out of the way at the moment. So just so we've got a little bit of space, then we can just manipulate our card like so, just to flatten that back out. And look what a lovely background you've got. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use my anti-static bag, because you know there's lots of moisture in there. So I'm going to take my anti-static bag. There we go. And you can see no colours come off because it's nice and dry. And then I'm going to use my stamp set Take Flight TE9. I need to put that on an acrylic block. Let's use TE9. I think I'll put it on a little bit of a bigger acrylic block, because if I put it on A7, I haven't got that flexible movement. So I'm then going to use the Versamark watermark stamp pad. I have now got the Versamarks in stock as well on my shop, because I use Versamark a great deal for lots of techniques. So I've now got them as well online. So let's just give that a really good inking. So just making sure that I tap the stamp, making sure that I've got that good coverage with my sticky ink. So what I'm going to do then is this will then fit nicely inside that A7 area. So we've got that oxide on there, so let's just give that a little bit of time just to grab hold of our card. I'm going to be using a white embossing powder. So we'll use that white embossing powder. And just take your time, give it time to grab the detail. And I always leave 2 fingers on there. For those of you that have never stamped before, don't move your fingers completely off the stamp set, because that way you'll end up with rocking. So, of course, I haven't got any copy paper. So let's grab that copy paper. Just so that we can add our embossing powder. So whichever embossing powder you like to use in your white embossing powders. So if I hadn't used an anti-static bag, can you imagine if I tipped all that over? It would be sticking everywhere. And now you can just see it's on my stamped image. It's not straggled everywhere. It's just on the stamped image. And the only reason I do that is just sort of to get rid of any sort of stray little bits. The sun is shining. I don't know how long for. You never know, we might get some sun this weekend. So what I'm going to do now is give that heat tool some time to heat up. Just love those colours together. It's nice to use some different colours. So I'm just giving that time to heat up. And then we'll heat our embossing powder. Just takes a little bit of time before that starts to turn. There we go. And as it starts to turn, I'm just going to move my heat tool so that I don't heat the same area over and over again. There we go. And again, we've got that curling. The embossing powder is a little bit hot, so I'm not going to place my hands on there. There we go. That's it. Just let's bend that a little bit. There we go. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of broken china. Let's take a little bit of that broken china. Really get a good layer of ink. And then I'm just going to lightly just sort of blend a little bit of the blue. Now it's very subtle, but what it does is it makes the white embossing just pop a little bit more. Just because we've added that little bit of blue. Now obviously some of that is sitting on top of the embossing. So we'll just add a touch of water, and then we'll just take that from the embossed area. There you go, and it just removes a bit of colour. And then a little bit of a polish. There we go. Just so that you can see you've got that lovely colour on there. Now, let me just check. I might want that a little bit slimmer. Now, I had these, I know this is mad, but I had these pieces of card. I think they're about 1 inch across, about 4 inches in length. I'm just going to cut a little bit more. I'm just freehand, nothing. So I'm just cutting those with it. They're not even measurements, they're just bits of strips of card. So what I'm going to do then is find the stamp. Now it's got that stickiness on there, so we don't want that when we go to our VersaFine Clear ink. Right. Now, if you didn't want to add much else, you could literally just leave that like that and add a sentiment, but I want to add more because I'm enjoying myself. So I've got stuff everywhere, so let me just think about this now. So which area do I want? I want some on this area here. So I'm just going to ink the whole stamp with my Nocturne, my black Nocturne ink. So I'm just going to ink the stamp. Mainly I'm inking the whole thing because I'm not sure which bit I'm using or whether I'll use it at all, because that's what happens when you're just going with the flow. But I'm going to create a more layered card this time because I haven't done one for ages. So I'm going to take this strip of card like so, and I'm just going to press the card just on to the stamp, and you don't really want to press too hard so that you don't get sort of a double impression. So let's use that. So then I want some on the other end. So I'm just going to ink that again, just because it's purely habit. Or do I want to make it sort of... I might do one across. You two can talk to yourself as much as I do. So this will go here, like so. And it just lines up. So where do you want the other one? So I think across, can you tell? My little brain is working overtime, and a little bit extra overtime because I don't know what I'm using yet. So I've just stamped a little bit there. Let's move this out of the way. And what I do need to do is make sure that those hands are clean, especially because I'm touching stamps. And when I'm touching stamps, you know, I'm asking for trouble. Okay, so what I'm doing then is, you can see here, I'm sort of adding a spotlight in a different way. Where are you? So you are there. Yes, I'm adding a spotlight in a different way. So I'm going to add that one. Just to, let's just give this a little bit of a... So when you stick it down, obviously it'll stick it down flat if you add enough adhesive or your double-sided tape. So let's just add this. And I refuse to throw my adhesive away because I know there's some in there. So then what I'm going to do is just spend a little bit of time not pressing down until I know that I've got that in the right place. There you go. So I've sort of got a spotlight in a different way. Let me just cut this down now. And then I've got a little bit stamped here. So you are going to be the hardest bit is getting it lined up. So then I'm going to have that little bit here, like so, because the key and the background is just going to be in the background. So let's see if we can get this lined up. There's always markers that you can look at that will allow you to, there we go, just to line that up a bit. So what I've created is a little bit of sort of a framed area, but a little bit of a spotlight in a different way, just so it looks a little bit different. So now I do want a little bit of a floral, I think. There we go. Just placing that back, mainly because it just gives me a little bit more space to work in. So let's place that back. I can easily cut more bits from there if I wish. Right, I'm just thinking now on a floral, where I want one that's a little bit finer. So I'm going to use the clematis. So we'll take the clematis. I'm using this bigger flower here, so I'm going to use that one. Again, we need a scrap of, I've never got just a scrap of card, have I? See if I can find another one. Could do with a proper scrap. That's actually a card that I've made. Let me see if I can find. Oh. There we go. Little scrap of card. And then we'll take my A7, my acrylic block. Again, you can decide which way you want to place the clematis. And I'm going to stamp with Crackling Campfire Distress Oxide ink. And because of that opaque quality of the Distress Oxide, that allows me to stamp the image as well, because it's got that pigment, that opaque element. So which way am I going to have it? We'll have it this way. So we're just going to stamp in that Crackling Campfire. And I've done that in the Crackling Campfire, and I'm thinking, do I want it in the Broken China? So let's just clean that off. Just dab gently. I've got enough room for one. Yeah. Let's just try the Distress Oxide Broken China, because if you can't decide which one that you want to add, stamp both and see how you feel. And as you can see, even with the oxides, I give that time just so that everything can just grab hold. So let's grab the water brush that isn't a water brush. And that's got yellow on there, as you would expect from my previous project. Okay. So I've got my brush with water, and then I'm just taking off a little bit of the excess so that I haven't got too much water. And because those oxides react with that moisture, I can just blend out the colour. And obviously with the broken china initially, it's very subtle. But you don't want to add too much water, as it'll just sort of float away from you. So I'm just blending a little bit of that broken china. Now I can go in and add a little bit more. I can pick up the broken china, sort of quite neat, and pick up a little bit more of that broken china. Just so that we can add a little bit more of the colour. And it'll just then become your no line colouring. Which is absolutely fine. I don't sort of want to add any other colours to this. Let me just take a little bit more of that broken china. My broken china is definitely well used. Just to blend that colour. Now let me just let's do the orange first. We'll just give that time to rest. Let's just, we don't want to turn the orange to green, so then just blend. And you're going to see more on the orange because that's a little bit more of a stronger colour. And yes, I know I'm colouring both, but we can decide then whether we want to use one or two. And the orange sort of blends out rather nicely. Not too complicated at all. So with the blue, let me just grab a little bit of a darker blue. So I'm just going to grab a little touch of the salty ocean. And again, I don't want green, so I'm just pick up that salty ocean. And then I'm just going to just sort of touch a little bit. Just so it's got a little bit more depth. You can just water that out, but don't drown it because you've got nowhere to go. So I'm just picking up the little sort of dregs of my colour. I'm going to take a little bit more of the Salty Ocean just to add a little bit more dimension. And as I water that out, I'm only just touching the oxide with a little bit. Oh, I was trying to go back to the broken china. So we'll take that broken china again. We'll pick that up and we'll just add a little bit more. So you end up with your no line colouring. Let's just, so I'm hardly using any water now. There's no water in my water brush. I'm not using any, so I'm going to pick up that Salty Ocean. I'm just going to just add a little bit more darkness just here and there. And my brush is very dry. It's not, I'm not going to, if I add loads of water now, it'll just flood. And then we won't end up with much. So let's just clean all this away. So I've got my Distress Oxides on there. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more definition. Right, let's get those trusty pencils out. So I'm just going to get my trusty pencils out because I've got the base of the colour. So what we need is might get there in a minute. Right, so pick up your pencils and test the colour sort of by your project. I like to just test which colours I'm going to use. That's better. And then we need a little bit of the orangey colour. Which is sort of terracotta-y. There we go. And there we go. So I'm just pulling out my pencils just to make sure I've got the right colours. So I'm going to start with a little bit of the darker colour, which is the Denim Blue, PC1101. And I'm just going to add a little bit of dimension just with the denim blue, just to give that a little bit of dimension and depth. And you can just use a circular motion or you can use a flicking motion, depends. Sometimes it depends what I'm colouring, to be honest. I'm just giving this a little bit of depth with that denim. And I'm then going to use Electric Blue PC1040. These are my Prismacolor pencils. And what I'm doing is I'll keep the oxide here where it's nice and light. Just keep the oxide so it's got that lighter colour at the tips. And I'm pressing very lightly. I'm not pressing too hard, or else I've got nowhere to go. I can't add more pigment if I press too hard. I also like to colour with paints as well. I often find that fun as well. So I'm just sort of giving a little bit more dimension. And you can make your floral look a little bit different by the way you colour your floral. And it's surprising how different you can make that look. And we'll just keep that lighter blue from the oxide, just so it goes off to that paler colour. And then going to use the blue again, which one were you? Electric Blue. Just to blend that colour out. And you can almost sort of see when you're colouring how the colour blends. And if anybody knows where I can, where is it? Where I can get the white from, which is my Prismacolor PC938. I've done a search and I can't find it anywhere. So if you know of anywhere, then wonderful. But at the moment I'm having no luck. So I'm going to use that white PC938 just to blend the edges just. And then I've got that oxide colour just at the tips. Now if you put your wet hands on the oxide, it will react. So you need to remember that. And we will add some white highlights. Then on this one, I'm going to add pumpkin orange PC1032. I'm just going to add a little bit of the pumpkin orange. just to... Now it's up to you. You can leave it like this if you wish. You don't have to go for the full-on sort of no line colouring at all. It's entirely up to you. So I've just got that pumpkin. I'm just going to add a little bit of white. There. So pumpkin and... Okay, come on. Mineral what? Mineral orange. PC 1033. Then I need this lettering to be giant. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this mineral orange. Just to give a little bit more dimension. And you can see I'm not rushing the process. I'm enjoying myself. And there's no need to sort of rush everything. We will add our touches of white as well. And you can sort of make things look totally different. Let me just add the definition in there. There we go. Where else have I got? Just, you can go in as many times as you wish. I lose myself when I'm colouring. I always have done. But just give it a little bit. You know, I've coloured, what's hilarious is, I've coloured these in. No ideas which one I'm using. It's so funny. It's like, do all this colouring, then decide you're not using that one. That's hilarious. Just going to use my white just to blend the lines. There we go. But that's what, when you're working sort of off the cuff, you have to play around with things. Right, I like that blue one. Right, let's cut out. So I'm going to cut out my clematis. I'm just going to leave a little tiny white border. And I will obviously add some touches of white. I'm using my Pergamano scissors to cut out, a bit like nail scissors because they're curved. I just find it a little bit easier when I'm doing the cutting out, especially with them sort of going to a point and they really cut right to that point, so they work nicely for me. I know some of you ladies can cut with big scissors. I can't cut out fine detail with big scissors. And I like this one because the petals are just a little bit sort of thinner. Just taking my time just to cut that out nicely, she says, without bending the other one. I was just bending the other petal. There we go. So we can add some touches of white afterwards. So I'm going to add this here, like so, with that turquoise colour. And I'm going to let that rest, and I will add the turquoise, but I want to add, you see, I've done this hair now, and it's far too big for that project. So I'm just going to go with this, and I'll use my hair in another project, which is fine. We can sort that. So this is why when you do things, you have an idea. So I wanted the hair, so I'll just create another project with the same colours, because I like this too much like this. I'm going to cut the sort of orangey one out as well. And this is why projects talk to you differently each time. Let's just cut that out. There we go. I hope you all have a lovely Easter break. Let's hope we get some reasonable weather. Mind you, Easter's early this year, isn't it? So normally, with it being a bit later, we've got more chance of having nice weather, really, if we're honest. Good Friday tomorrow. I hope you've got nice things planned, even if it's just relaxing, or maybe you're doing a bit of gardening. I've got a few plants to plant, not annuals, these are perennials. Spring is a perfect time to plant those perennials. So just cut out, just leaving a little bit of a white border. There we go. There we go. So I can just decide whether I'm going to add, and I love it. So take that one away, you might just want that. I actually like, let's have a look again. I actually like the pop of orange as well. So I'm just going to go in with a bit more. So what I'm going to do now is just get a brown. Yes, you too can pull every pencil out that you own. And I'm just going to get a little bit of a brown. Just to just to give a little bit more dimension. And we can add the white. Shall we? It's probably better to add the white before we stick it down, which is, I don't normally do it. I'm too engrossed. I do like to let things rest a little bit. It's just, the white pen goes on there a lot better if you sort of give the project a little bit of time just to rest. So I'm just giving a little bit of the white details just on my clematis, just to give it a little bit of definition. It's just important. It's surprising how just a few little white touches will just bring your floral to life. Now, I like adding dimension to my cards. Now, I'm well aware that, you know, obviously postage is key, but if I'm sending to a friend or whatever, I don't mind. So I'm going to have a little bit of dimension on mine, but I'm just going to use my tonic glue. But I'm not actually going to stick down the petals. So I'm just sticking down the centre area, so whoever receives it can just bend the petals back to give that a little bit more life. And I've still got time just to manoeuvre this. I don't want the excess glue. And if you've ever got excess glue, go in with your copier paper, and your copier paper will just pick that up and remove the excess. So then I'm going to add this one here. Isn't it funny how a project, when you start doing it, you have one idea, but it speaks to you in a different way. Just lifting those up. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white, just here and there, just to give it a little bit more sort of depth and dimension. Even if I just scribble a little bit of white on, it really sort of just lifts that a little bit. There we go. We can then add some splatters to our card. Now, if you don't want your splatters to react with your colour like your oxides, you can use the bleed proof. I'm then going to, somewhere in the midst of all this, was that black ink? That might have been oxide. Yeah, oxide. You can see the cloudy sort of film it leaves on there. So we'll just take our clematis stamp again. And we'll just take the word clematis. Now, I'm literally enjoying myself. So, you know, if you don't want a long session, you can just do little parts of the project and come back to it when you wish. So I'm taking the word, no, I have not taken the word clematis because I'm talking and it's the word clematis that I want. There we go. You see, if I concentrated. So then I'm going to ink that with my black Nocturne ink. I think I might be pushing it a little bit out there with that cardstock. I know there's using scraps and using scraps, but that's pushing it a little bit. So just add that clematis. It also helps if you haven't got everything in the way. Trim our wording down. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a black matte. And I like the fact that on my YouTube channel, I don't have to feel rushed if I don't want to. If I want to be on here 3 hours, I can be on here 3 hours. Can't speak, but you can just sort of do as much or as little as you want. There we go. So let's take our clematis wording, and then I'm just going to add, just keep it in with the cluster. Oh, do we want it there? So there, or there, or I'm going to talk to myself there. I'm going to put it. Do you talk to your cards? Because I do. I talk to my cards all the time. Now, if you want, and you want to flatten your card, you can place it in between some books or a pile of books, just to flatten that out, just so that you can see this. Just lovely. And then I'm going to add this to my black mat. Now, my card is very curled. If you were using double-sided tape, it would grab that straight away and just keep it flat. But me being me, I can't work with double-sided tape because I never get it in bang on the right place straight away. I like to sort of maneuver, so I'll sort of get it in the right place. I will pick it up and then I will make sure, and I feel a lot better doing it this way. We're all different, aren't we? So, and it gives me a little bit of manoeuvrability so that I can manoeuvre that card if it isn't quite right. And if I've added glue to the centre area of the card, that helps as well, just to grab hold of that card and prevent those kinks and curls on the card. But you can see I need to give it a few seconds just for it to grab hold. The tonic is quite good. It does grab hold quite quickly. There we go. And then I can add this. You can see it's bending there. So I'm just going to use the warmth of my hands just to, there we go, that's it. And then I'm going to add that to a 5x7 card blank. That's it. So add that to our 5x7 card blank. And again, if I'm not quite happy, I can move that slightly, which just makes me happy. And then you can see that you've got sort of a beautiful layered card. Let's just press that down. Just lovely with some different colours, which is really nice. Right, we want to use the hair. So where did we go now? we had let me just have a look. Okay, so do you remember this card that is just, I have no idea even what it measures, it's just a piece of card, we'll measure it afterwards, and I've got this hair on there that now is textural. So what I'm going to do is take a stencil, which let's hope we've got one on my desk somewhere. Of course I haven't, because I tidied everything away. Tracy always tidies things away. Okay. So let's take my deciduous stencil. Now which way? Do we, that way, and then you end up with it. So you want it that way. I'm talking to myself. So what I'm going to do is use why is the colour that you want? Oh, that's because it's on my desk. Right. So let's move this out of the way. So I'm going to use broken china because it's on my desk. I'm going to use broken china, and I'm going to use scorched timber. So I'm not sort of going over the edges of the stencil. And then I'm just going to spritz this with water. So I've spritzed this with water. And then I'm going to place this just over the top, and then we'll just dab with our kitchen roll. Just give that time. You'll see it picks up some of that moisture. We go. So I've got that scorched timber and broken china on there. So let's give that a little bit of a dry. Okay. And then shall we open the card and continue some let's use this copy paper. Let's continue some on the other side, which I can't do now because I've got this all in the way. So move this out of the way, then use the broken china, then we'll use the scorched timber. Doesn't have to be loads, and then we'll just spritz that with some water. I'll measure the card. I have no idea what size card it is because I've just picked it up out of my drawer, and it must be years old because I think it was when I was demoing. So just picking up that excess moisture. From the stencil, and now I've got that going across the card blank. So let's just give that a dry. So that's going all the way across the card blank now. You can just let that dry naturally if you wish. Let's just pick this up. Has that stuck to that? No. So I'll take my little bit of kitchen roll. add a little bit of damp water and just remove it from the hair. Because you've got that hair on there that's just sort of textural. Where's my hair? So we can take the hair, try and get it in the place that is that over the top. That's over the top-ish. That's fine, because some of it will be covered up. Right, now I've just got to look for a colour. One of these, and we've got browns and blues. Okay. So I'm just getting some alcohol ink. Blue and... Okay, so this is sort of a glossy paste. So what I'm going to do is I pick this up, and none of them are clean. Now, if you're going to use your alcohol inks, work in a well-ventilated room. If you don't have alcohol inks, then use your alcohol pens. And then I'm going to use a little bit of aquamarine. So let's add a little bit of the aquamarine. And then let's add a little bit of the aquamarine to our surface. So this is the paste that I've got on site. So remember, we did this with the Distress Texture Paste Translucent. And this was what I wiped off the stencil. Don't worry about your stencil with the alcohol inks, that's easy to clean off. So let's add a little bit of ginger, little tiny bit, which you can see is tiny. In fact, it's so tiny, there we go. So then you've got your little hair that we just dabbed on with wasted texture paste, translucent. Let me just lift up that because it has got texture on, just so that you can see that. Let's move this out of the way. Oh no, we want that, don't we? Just keeps everywhere clean. There is texture on there. And we'll add some touches of white as well. So now we've got our little bunny embellishment that we added, that we can add here. So what I'm going to do is grab now again, you could add some of your alcohol inks and still see the texture through. I'm going to use my Pebeo wax, which is the silver wax. And look for a nail that's not too long, because I do not like it going up my nail. Take off the excess, tip it back on your card, and let me just, and then take off some of the excess, because you want to see some of that text through. So let me just take a little bit of this off. So I've added a little bit of the wax. Now let me just take a little bit of that wax off. So let's just take a little bit of the wax off, just with my hand sanitizer. Just scrub a little bit off, just so it's a bit more patchy and looks a bit more natural, just so that you can see that. Can you see this here? That's texture in there, and texture here, that's texture. And if you want to, you can even add a touch of the blue just to the tips here and there, just to the tips of your, just to give it a tinge of the blue, you know, with your alcohol ink. Just so that it's got little tinges of the blue, and we'll just add this here. See, when I have a long craft session, yes, my hands get dirty, but there you go. So let's just add a little bit. And you can add these embellishments. Can you imagine just 3? Let me just turn this round. Can you imagine 3 just going down a card as well? They would look nice as well. So we'll just add this here. And I like it hanging over the edge of the card. Just makes me happy. Just going to clean my hands. And then I'm going to grab, where's my little text stamp? So I'm going to grab my little text stamp from Meander Through Beauty. Use whatever text stamp you've got. And this is sort of creating, because I'm creating from leftovers, and because I'd got bits left over I'd not used. So let's bring this down. Take this little stamp, and as a lady lovely pointed out, I've added an arrow so I know which way my stamp is going. Then going to use the VersaFine Clair, and I'm just showing you how versatile your stamps and stencils really are. So I'm going to add a little bit of that text just in the morning mist, just to give a little bit more detail just to my project. I do love it when the text just shows through a little bit of the numbers. Just makes me happy. Let's just go straight the way down, like so. And it's good if you can get it a little bit random as well. That works really well. Because obviously you're not going to get text over there, so you get it nice and random. Now this is, don't forget, just from a piece that we've created just from waste. So let's turn this over. So we're working on that clean area. And you too can have hundreds of products out like I am. Let me grab a little bit of white paint. Have I got a brush that's like concrete? A little bit, yes. So I've got a little bit of a brush. So I'm just going to take a little bit of white paint. It's because I've got so many things in my hand. There we go. So a little bit of white paint. And you only need a little bit, so nobody knows why I've put that much. And you need it to be dry. Just to give a little bit of the white just across the texture of the little bunny, just to give it a little bit of white. I will lift this up. Nobody needed that much white paint, which you can just brayer onto another project. We'll then add some splatters. Not that one, obviously. Have we got any that actually work? We obviously haven't got any that work. Oh dear, dear, dear. What about this one? Oh yes, that I can feel there's a little bit more paint in that. So we'll just add those splatters. Let's just clean up after ourselves, just so that we don't then press the card into any of that rubbish. And then, here we go. Where's the clematis? There you go. So on the clematis, there is a sentiment with warmest wishes. And we will use that. Really, you should place these longer ones down onto a mat that's got measurements on and lines, and then you know you can pick it up straight. So let's, there you go. Can we use this bit of card? That's it. We'll just cut this out. And what I'm trying to show you is, even from your leftovers, you can create something. Black Posca pen. We'll do this on our non-stick craft sheet, mainly because there is no room anywhere else. We just have that. There we go. Let's place these back so we have a little bit more space. So I can add with warmest wishes here. And then when the person receives this card, even if you're just sending a note to say, you know, wishing you well, and they will have all the texture on the card. Just give that a little bit of time. And it's so tactile. It really is tactile. So just want to add a little bit of shading to
the
sentiment. And I'm just trying to give you, as always, as many ideas as I possibly can. Let's get rid of this blue. When you're using stamps and stencils, I'm just washing my brush on the side because, as you know, it's rarely clean, and I'm just going to touch that because you've got the oxide underneath and you don't really want to activate that. So we've got that shading just on there, just so that you can see. And it's all textural, it's shiny, it's just fab. Now, what if you wanted to colour? Have I got one that we can... Let me just see if I can cut this out. Now, if you want to colour them in a different way and you want a totally different look, let me see if I can just cut this out. You know, I don't know whether it'll work, but it doesn't matter. That's what you're doing. You're testing different things. Let me just... So this is the hair that, again, I wiped the excess off of the Distress Texture Paste Translucent. I wiped it off. So I'm just cutting around it because you've got a ridge that you can cut around. So this one is just what I wiped off and it's textural. So I'm wondering whether I've got these. These are liquid chrome mirror effect pens, and I'm wondering whether it will take onto this surface. Guess what? If it doesn't, it doesn't matter. So you can just colour with the mirror effect, and I've got all the texture underneath, just so that you can see I've now got a mirror effect. With the hair. So if I was doing sort of purples, pinks, I'm probably going to have to give this time to dry. But what we'll do, we'll leave that to dry, and then I will add another coat and I will report back to you whether it's dried okay, because I just need to give it time. I mean, yeah, it's still wet on there, so we'll see. Don't know whether... Let's have a look. Let's see if it just... if we can dry it. Because if I don't experiment with things and test things, then you won't know. Because this mirror pen goes perfectly. Let me show the card. When you put it on card, it's a complete mirror effect. I'll see if that dries and then I'll report back to you, but we shall see. Let me just... I think, and what the good thing is, I think it takes a bit of time to dry, but you can add texture to it also with your kitchen roll. By dabbing the kitchen roll, it also adds texture to the design. So I'll report back on that anyway. I think I've done enough experimenting for today. Let's just wipe my hands and bring in, and then we'll show you how to clean your stencil. Let's measure this card. So this card, which was a card blank, and I think I've cut it from A3 card, is 8.5 inches in height and 4 inches in width. But if you wanted to, you could now chop this here, because you've got it all over the other side. So then you can see that the card goes all the way across like so, and you can put an insert on the inside and then maybe add another hair on the inside as well. So it's entirely up to you. You can also add a little bit of silver to this one as well, but they're very textural. So that's your first card, and then this is the card we actually made just during our live, just so that you can see that. So I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of an experiment. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Oh, before we go, I'm doing it again. I'm getting all thinking I'm not showing you. Where's the stencil? There it is. So if you want to clean your stencil, I can just use, let's grab, I can use a little bit of hand sanitizer, or if you've got pure alcohol, which I've got both, you can take your hand sanitizer and you can just wipe that off. Obviously you would take a little bit more time than I'm doing, but you can just clean your stencil. Just so you can see, I've got most of that off. So you can, and I've also got a print on the other page, but you can just clean your stencil. I mean, some of this has been on for months. And if I just use my hand sanitizer, it will come off. So don't worry about your stencils, it will come off with hand sanitizer. Nearly forgot to tell you that then. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.